start this webinar series now with journalism studies in mind. No? So we want to help our journalism educators improve their skill sets, and so we will be inviting experts, no, in different aspects of research, no, share their knowledge and expertise to our JSAP. So, to start our program, I would like to call on the chairman and president of the Journalism Studies Association of the Philippines Incorporated. She's a member of the journalism faculty of the UP Diliman College of Mass Communication, where she was previously the chair of the Department of Journalism. So JSAP is here because of the initiative of our president. It's none other than Professor Lucia Mitani. Miss Lu, you may now take over.
Okay. Yeah. Uh, Thank you, Felipe. Members of JSAP board, fellow educators, sorry, alert. Members of the JSAP board, fellow researchers are not teaching or organizing conferences. They are often working on academic studies. These are the basic units of work in higher education. And these studies are typically a paper from several pages up to probably 50 pages. These studies help advance knowledge in a particular field, from probably age research to understanding gender issues in the Philippines and the Philippine media. And unlike most journalistic stories or blogs, academic studies are the product of months or sometimes even years of work. It can include analysis of large sets of data or carefully conducted experiments. A scholar might finish a few important studies in his or her career, contributing incremental knowledge on a question that may have been as as much as much definitely be known on a particular question, but it can be also very complex or sometimes seemingly self-evident. I was once asked about my research on underground press. One student, in fact, asked me how long did I write a 10-word article. So that was a 10-word article, you know? And my article is, I would consider it as a pioneering study on the underground press in the Philippines. And when I was asked on how long did I work on this article, I said it took me 5 years. Okay, so totoo po yung 5 years, no? Because of the complexity of the topic and the difficulty looking for material. So I had to stop in between writings to ask around if they had copies of Ang Bayan, or to read all the doctrines and documents of the CPP and FPA to better understand the role of Ang Bayan in the underground movement. And sometimes also, again, the qualitative does not mean that you spend less research. In fact, in many cases, you spend more time in qualitative research. And I think today's lecture by no less than Dr. Opiniano is very useful for us to better understand what is qualitative research. So I'm happy that for the first topic for Usap JSAP, we have an academic and also a former journalist to discuss to us about qualitative research. And on behalf of the JSAP Board of Trustees, I welcome you all in Usap JSAP. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ma'am Lu, for delivering the opening remarks, the welcome remarks to our event. So anyway, the format of this Zoom webinar is is a sharing session. So we want to remove the stiffness that characterizes many Zoom webinars. And for that purpose, we are not using a Zoom webinar format. We're using a Zoom meeting format. All right. So that means later on, anyone can unmute and open their cameras and interact with our resource person. So in the meantime, while our resource person is delivering his lecture, may I request everyone to keep their microphones on mute. And they may open their cameras if their internet connection permits it. Okay. So now I would like to introduce our resource person. Jeremiah M. Opiniano is a tenured faculty member of the BA Journalism program under the Department of Communication and Media Studies of the University of Santo Tomas, Faculty of Arts and Letters. In 2022, he was named director of the UST Research Center for Social Sciences and Education, where he had served as assistant director and a resident researcher. So Dr. Opiniano finished his master's degree in development communication at the University of the Philippines Open University in 2001 and obtained his doctorate degree in human geography at the University of Adelaide in Australia in 2021. The Dr. Opiniano is also the president of the Overseas Filipino Workers Journalism Consortium and executive director of the Institute for Migration and Development Studies. May I now turn over the virtual floor to Dr. Jeremiah Opiniano. Welcome, Sir Jere, to the first ever USAP JSAP webinar sharing session.
Welcome. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, permission to share my screen. Just a moment, thank you.
Are you able to share it? Okay.
Okay, so good afternoon to everyone. And I thank the JSAP for giving the University of Santo Tomas this opportunity to share some of its experiences in teaching research methods. I will also try my best to balance the perspective of a journalist and then also of a scholar, especially in the field we're in. Well, if you read some of the papers here, they are not surprisingly too scholarly, even if the writers are former journalists. And of course, like daily news reporting, it also takes time to master the craft. But today, and with the permission of the organizers, I will divide. This is kind of an elongated sharing. I will divide the discussion into several parts, and 1/3 of it is or qualitative research. That's why the title is this way. So, but first, there's no need to call me doctor. Just like what we were trained for in Australia, you just call yourselves by your names, even though you're emeritus, simply because you are colleagues. And then let me also pay tribute to communication giants from the Philippines, especially since we're talking about, basically, this is communication research. And these two big names, they have all gone into internal life. They have made a niche in the field or in the discipline of communication, but representing the Republic of the Philippines. Okay, so as a session flow, I would like to divide the session into the following. The qual, which was asked of me, that will form part of the chunk of this sharing session. But the first and the third parts, I hope the organizers will allow me to give some reflection on journalism studies by Filipinos, and then towards the end, present some hopefully motivational efforts for journalism schools in the Philippines. I know this is for skills upgrade for us in Philippine J schools, and I hope that there will be others who will catch up. If they will not be able to catch up, well, let me the webinar recording be shared to as much members and J schools as possible. All right. But I would like to start off the sharing session with this metaphor. And of course, we currently host the FIBA World Cup. And basically, since this is a World Cup, so this is a tournament wherein we showcase up to what level do we have or can we reach. That's why I always say to some students in sports writing is always about the levels of play. So we kind of show our happiness to Manny Pacquiao, recently to EJ Obiena, the first Filipino silver medalist in the World Athletics Championships, also with Kaloy Yulo, then of course Hayden Diaz. But we kind of frown upon athletes like the national basketball team wherein we are so crazed about the sport, but we can only reach this much. And that metaphor will kind of serve as an underlying message for this first and third part of the sharing for today. All right. So that's where we jump off with the first part. Okay, so but let me first share, well, a little bit of reflection about what journalism studies is. Well, journalism studies came from communication, and of course, communication has been studied for the longest time, even if the communication discipline does not have its own theories, because the theories of comm are actually borrowed from other disciplines like sociology, even an engineering discipline, psychology, and what have you. But since journalism has been an institution for quite some time, so journalism scholarship kind of moved out from the greater communication discipline at the turn of the millennium, given the publication of journals, the organization of events, and the persistence of some of the renowned names to make journalism a discipline. And if you ask me for a definition, you can see from your screen what it is. It is the multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary, systematic inquiry on the messages, the methods, the actors, the institutions, processes, and impacts surrounding the practice of journalism by individual journalists, news outlets, and countries. It takes into account the cultures and norms by the individuals, the institutions, and the countries that execute and receive such journalistic practices done through various media platforms. So this working definition somewhat covers almost a bit of everything about journalism phenomena that we have been studying, whether as an undergraduate or graduate thesis or as a dedicated scholarship. Of course, if you Google, if you type, let's say, journalism studies Philippines, a prominent name comes to mind, and that's Dr. Edson Tandok of the Nanyang Technological University in Singapore, of course, a product of the University of the Philippines, Joran School. And at the same time, in our discipline, of course, we hear varied voices, and the eminent journalism scholar Barbie Zelliser kind of put them together in her 2004 book, Taking Journalism Seriously. And she kind of presented here, and it's on screen, these three actors and voices, and what do they think of each other? Okay. But the point of Barbie here is that while we respect the differing perspectives of educators, of scholars, and of the journalists themselves, what if we put all their perspectives together, and the putting together of their voices provides us broader ways to understand what journalism is. So imagine if you you produce a research project that not only contributes to theory, not only is methodologically innovative, but it also captures the practical and the policy level implications of the phenomenon you're studying at. That kind of a combination is what Barbie wishes that journalism scholars may do. And that is where we try to blend the lenses of these people, the teachers, the scholars, and the professionals. Okay, so I think the message here is that we are not at odds with each other. In fact, even some scholars are even former journalists, or they have practiced journalism in one way or another, let's say to the campus press, whether in high school or in university education. So there's no tussle between and among them. It's just a matter of putting their perspectives together to capture a theoretical and the practical. But what about the Philippines? Well, since trying to notice the journalism studies discipline over the years, of course, you kind of include the Philippines as one of those countries that are less studied together with other developing countries. Perhaps a few developed countries are being studied, but not kind of in an interested way, like, let's say, journalism in the UK, journalism in some European countries, journalism in, let's say, China or Japan, and then the US and Canada. So we can probably infer that in a sense, there's not much Filipino scholars in regard to journalism studies. And perhaps this observation is occurring because of the following. Perhaps we are few in number. We also may have limited access to the latest research globally. And most of these research, by the way, comes from the developed world. Scholars like myself are late bloomers in this ball game for journalism studies. And we are also late bloomers in participating in these top-notch conferences organized by the leading groups in our discipline, including the ICA, or the International Communication Association, and the International Association for Media and Communication Research. As for journalism educators, well, we have the World Journalism Education Council, and they have been convening triennial conferences that are research-based. So we are kind of late bloomers in this game. That's what I noticed. And then also limited networking efforts. Probably if there are networking efforts, it's the Manila J schools that are doing it. But hopefully we would like to see the provincial J schools do the same. And then as a personal note also, I also noticed that many of us, whether it's journalism or not, we remain attached to the traditional formats and thesis writing, and to being centric, and I'll show some examples later, and to being centric with the studies, with the subjects and locations of the research themselves, but with no or weak connections to the literature. And every time I teach research methods in class, and some of our students are here, I try to make them crack their heads about knowing what are you really studying, what is the phenomenon, then the variables, and then the locus will come later. Okay, so the locus will come later, because as I had told them last term, for example, a journalistic phenomenon happens everywhere with variances prevailing, especially brought about by journalistic culture, as Tom Hanich and company would say. So that's journalistic culture shown on screen. So let's say the COVID-19 pandemic, all countries experience the same, all journalistic cultures experience the same, and how COVID-19 impacted on journalism. So you can obviously see the variances. And I always tell the students that if we try to write literature reviews, it's supposed to be global, not merely local. Then you include the local also in the literature review, if there are materials available. Okay, but please note that the journalism phenomenon happens everywhere. But side by side with these observations of the Philippines, there are global developments happening. One, there has been a proliferation of cross-country research on journalism. And of course, two renowned ones are the books that are shown on screen, the most prominent of which is what is called The Worlds of Journalism, spearheaded by Tom Hanich. And then, for the longest time, even in the communication discipline, there have been calls to de-Westernize theorizing and scholarship in our discipline, simply because the theories that were developed are so Western-centric that if you try to apply them in the developing country setting, it may not work, or it doesn't work, or the theories overlook certain dynamics that are happening in the host in the developing country. That's why the Asian Media Information and Communication Center, or AMIC, has been kind of pushing the envelope and trying to tell the developed country scholars about the perspectives of Asia, for example, of Africa, for example, and the group's event next month is about Asian African communication theorizing, to see what cultural differences are present and how can these cultural differences and theories eventually blend with already existing theories, mostly coming from the West. And then, of course, for the longest time, journalism is not spared. There has been interdisciplinarity occurring, and this means that journalism is working with other disciplines. At the same time, also, there have been lots of methodological developments and innovations, whether within quantitative methods or within qualitative methods. But if you put them together, all the more that there have been innovations in what is called mixed methods research. Mixed methods is the putting together of the quant and the qual from the beginning of the project, so from project conceptualization or the research question until the end, not after data gathering. So that's mixed methods. And then, of course, another global emergence that has seen the proliferation of such studies showcases newer challenges facing journalists that run side by side with new trends in doing journalism. Of course, the latest trend that we have right now is artificial intelligence, and AI in journalism has exploded recently as a new area of journalism studies research. And there are more. TikTok is another example. Although there may seem to be, and you may either disagree with me or not, there may be some observed Philippine international disconnects. As a first disconnect, I see these in literature reviews. I think, for one, we may have a lot of catching up to do to know the latest discourse, let's say, on agenda setting theory, which is already on its 6th level, or let's say the use of social media and journalism. And I say this because there is a tendency by some of the studies here in the Philippines to produce topics or projects that had already been done in other countries. So we may have to be alert in what are happening around. That's why we have Google Scholar alerts, or alerts, let's say, in platforms like ResearchGate. Although we recognize the fact that access to the top journals is tough, especially given the skyrocketing subscription rates of these journals and their publishers. So unfortunately, what is happening is that there is limited to nil knowledge of the global discourses of a specific journalistic related issue or phenomenon. And it is just also, for me, unfortunate that it is mostly the Manila-based schools who know these discourses, even if the provincial J schools directly access Google and the website of the journals. So I hope there could be a way to bridge these divides within our archipelago. And then another disconnect is knowing the usual methods, but not upgrading our research skills to implement other quant and or qual research design. So for example, in the University of Santo Tomas, in a research center here, we're trying to know more about these inferential statistics at our 2nd level or even 3rd level, and try to learn other qualitative research designs, and not just the usual, which includes case study methods. So the one outcome is that there seems to be a sense that a project in the Philippines may not be kind of strategically connected to the global literature. And then another observation also is the variable or the variables is or are not clear. Like if you read let's say the third bullet, like their lived experiences on what? So the variable isn't present. The others, the variables, they may be hidden but not explicitly mentioned. A variable is important because it is, for me, it is the anchor that drives the research. It is the observable or measurable thing to study that drives the literature review and eventually drives the entire project. So if we are able to find out through literature search the precise variable, that will be great. So for example, a content analysis of reportage by online news sites on the Marcos presidency. Let's say you have that project, and then you ask the students, what is the variable? Then they're having a hard time answering the question. And that's why I keep on emphasizing in this slide that the variable is important for us to identify so that we could move forward with the study. So with these developments, so is there hope? And I would like to offer my yes to such. And hopes can spring forth by doing several steps, whether simultaneously or all of them. First is to learn the journal format. And for, I think, 4 or 5 decades now, this journal format called the IMRAD has been going on. This is the standard format in most journals. The IMRAD stands for Introduction, Methods, Results, and that's the end. That's the A, and discussion. Others, they say Introduction, Method, Results, Analysis, and Discussion. So, admittedly, we are kind of late in the ball game here. So we have been implementing the IMRAD format for like only 10 years now, and we should have done this a long time ago. And I say the relevance of the IMRAD format because it will be easier for us that if we want to translate our research into publishable form, this is the publishable form. And the IMRAD format, one of its beauties is that given the way it is structured, it enables us to precisely identify the research gaps that you are already filling through your study. And addressing these research gaps enables us to be connected to the global world of ideas. And this connection can come from not just the things that we observe around in the newsroom or in the newsbeat or in the news that we watch, but also in the journals concerned. That's why the IMRAD facilitates reading for readers because it not only allows them to easily go to the section and seek the information that most appeals them, but it helps readers cognitively chunk and make sense of such information. So for formatting wise, if I may humbly recommend J schools, we seek training on knowing the IMRAD format. And then why do we make it our thesis format? Because in overseas countries, they accommodate both the traditional format and the journal format up to the Ph.D. And as a giveaway, I will share later this compendium of the ranked journals in communication so that the J schools will know where to submit their journal articles. This information comes from Scopus and its Simago journal and country rank database. So this is around several pages of 471 journals over there from quartile 1 to quartile 4. It's up to you to maximize them. So all that you need to do is to know such information and from each of the journal's websites, how to submit, what are the aims and scope, etc. So I will do that later with everyone's permission. Another hope is probably establishing, and I will borrow this from our colleague in UST, Dr. Joyce Ariola, a journalism research excellence framework. This is like the infrastructure for a discipline or a department to make research kind of institutionalized as not just a requirement for a degree, but as something that is natural. And probably what can help is such perspective from two British scholars, because they think that the undergraduate students can already be partners in producing knowledge. And one way to do so, as Mike Healy and Alan Jenkins would say, is to reinvent or reinvigorate the curriculum so that undergraduate students should experience learning through and about research and inquiry. So how do we integrate research in our curricula that is not just through the thesis? And if that measure is done, it seems like what our research programs will see are four types or four ways to produce research. So you can have students as participants, and on Discord, they can be research tutored or research based their projects. And you have students who are frequently an audience. So you have research led projects and you have research oriented projects. So students as on the left side, the emphasis here is on research content. But on the right side, you have the emphasis here on research processes and problems. And in fact, Jenkins and his other colleague would recommend research-based and research-oriented approaches to undergraduate research and inquiry. So it has been common in many universities abroad, even in the developing world, that undergraduate theses become a co-authored arrangement with their faculty member advisors or supervisors. So if you want to know how a research excellence framework looks like, at least for journalism and our journalism departments, it may look like this. So we have the curriculum in place, you have the usual thesis management system in place, and then mentoring. One of the groups here called the Philippine Association for Communication and Media Research Incorporated, or PAC-MRI, they have been concerned about the lack or the absence of mentoring in undergraduate and graduate research. That's why last year it had to organize series of webinars on research methods that relate eventually to mentoring. And I hope this is something for our teachers. I know we are all busy people. I know we are also we also have varying levels of appreciation to research, but mentoring, like in journalism, is something that can help make us grow and become better. And the same with research. And then, of course, we also have niche identification. And in terms of niche identification, the key question here, and I have some slides after this on niche identification, is what will be the difference maker for your J school in the Philippines in terms of areas of study in journalism worldwide. So if others have been doing AI, others have been doing TikTok, others have been doing, let's say, journalistic role performance, and what have you, what will be your niche area for research? And I think if we will be able to do this, then whatever research you can produce through your thesis management system, eventually they will become original, ready for journal submission. And if they get cited, then you can already call your J school an international J school in terms of research. So that what follows next would be specialization, peer recognition, and then the research carry is social, cultural, and policy relevance. So I hope that such diagram shown on screen gives our J school partners, whether live here or on Zoom, and if they will be able to watch this recording, some insights on how our joint programs can set up a journalism research excellence framework. Okay. Now, I said earlier something about the niche identification, and that is a third source of hope for us. If you can dare writing and implementing an updated, globally aligned new research agenda in journalism studies, that will be great. Not just focusing on the mediums or the actors, but on the phenomena that are occurring all over the world, and find your niche over there. And well, I'm showing these diagrams because these diagrams are broad-ranging research agenda in journalism studies. The upper diagram from the Worlds of Journalism project, and you have to think of a lot of papers here. Down below, this overstudied variable called journalistic role performance has exploded in the last 10 years, courtesy of that Chilean lady, Claudia Miliado, and they were able to produce a book on journalistic role performance. So, and many papers can be written here. So therefore, if we have these global trends, so how can you write a daring, globally aligned new research agenda in journalism studies? So this is just a tryout. And if I have, I'll be able to find time, I will propose this to my boss, Mr. Felipe Salvosa here, because I think with the studies available on journalistic cultures and journalistic role performance, I think it is now time for us, perhaps, to talk about how do journalists behave and decide on things surrounding their work and their relationship with institutions, and you try to determine that relationship. You try to determine those actions, behaviors, and decisions given what's prevailing, the structures of journalism and the journalistic cultures that prevail. And for me, I guess this is not just a Philippine project, but this could be something like a global enterprise, especially since you have these countries trying to capture such kind of a, proposed theme that I think can be globally competitive. Is there hope? Well, another source of hope will be pakapala ng mukha, and that will be through networking. And networking will be through, let's say, fellow journalism schools in the Philippines. And then if you have the manpower and the training, and then you have the confidence, then you can deal with foreign J schools and do collaborative research together. That's why we must be ready to upgrade our skills when we deal with them. And admittedly, at first, in initial attendances in these journalism events, I feel inferior because of these big names. So the reflection to me is, how can I be like them to reach that level of play that they have been accustomed to over the years? And that will even take a lot of humility from your end or from my end, because we recognize that there are people better than us, and we also recognize that even though in the Philippines we could brandish our scholarship, we still recognize that there are other scholars better than us, and to perhaps confront that humility, we would like to work together with them and probably with each other. And the final source of hope, of course, is methods. And I always show this colorful image to students to showcase the methods that are available for research in the social sciences. And this is the segue for me to now talk about qual research. And before I do so, the message of this slide is that we further study methods. It's like, the late Kobe Bryant. And if you watch some of his documentaries or documentaries about him, he would always talk about that he was an 18-year-old. He's still not contented with himself. He trained and trained every day, 5 in the morning, tried to become better until he had reached the pinnacle to tell the world that this is Kobe Bryant. And of course, we remember him and his contributions to the sport. So that same analogy also applies to research. Okay, now we can go to the heart of the sharing, which is qualitative research. And I will borrow what is called the qualitative research compass from a colleague here in UST. His name is Alan de Guzman, the top published researcher of the university, not just in the social sciences, but in overall scientific disciplines. And there will be, and with the permission of the organizers, in my sharing of this qualitative research compass, I will borrow some time for everyone to watch 4 very short instructional videos that were done through Canva. All right. So what is this compass talking about? So here it is. So this is like Alan de Guzman kind of packaging the research process for for qualitative methods. Of course, qualitative methods yield words as data. We are not after generalizability. We are after the depth of the experience, the meaning of the experience, and therefore they should not be compared with quant, because quant is of a different animal. That's why I showed the diagram earlier to tell you the differences between the quant and the qual. All right, so what I will do is to go these elements of the compass one by one. When we go to number 5, number 5 up to 7 and 8, we will have some Canva video recordings with the permission of organizers. So compass number 1, whose experience? Compass number 2, which layer of the human experience? Compass number 2 talks about the variable that I was emphasizing earlier. Compass number 3, what question to ask? Compass number 4, what design to have? Compass number 5, where to source out the data. Compass number 6, how many selections or how many subjects. Number 7, how to analyze the gathered data. Number 8, how to validate the findings. Yes, if quant has data validation and reliability and validity through statistical means, in qual there are validation efforts that should be done and not overlooked. And then compass number 9, what to have after the journey, meaning what is the ending of this. All right. Compass number 1, whose experience? Basically, qual is the essence of qual is storytelling, and journalists like us, we are trained in the art of telling stories. And we are, so therefore, if this is storytelling, so we are telling stories of the human experience, that when we write about these are experiences as text that should be read. Okay. So if I may ask, just a moment, if I may borrow the students here. Just a moment. I would like to call with the if I may, we could have some class participation. If I call your name, sorry to the UST students. I think we have done this exercise previously, but let's have some exercises here. So Alex Cardenas, would you like to turn on your mic? Hello, is Alex?
Hello, sir.
Hello, okay, Alex. Okay, so let's try to do this. All right. So can you see the screen, right? You can
Yes,
see the screen, right? Okay, can you give me 8 actors involved in the industry?
Journalists, sir.
Individual or institutional?
Journalists themselves, sir.
Okay. 7 more.
Journalists, students, scholars.
Okay.
Schools or universities.
Okay, schools, okay.
Researchers.
Okay.
3
more. I see this is live class. Sorry.
Producers.
Okay, news producers or TV producers or radio producers. 2 more.
Publishers and
Publishers.
news organizations.
All right, very good, Alex. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So later I will explain why I'm asking Alex to do this. And then I will call another person. This is the next slide. If I may call on Christine Montojo. Hi, Nix. Can you turn your mic on, please? Even for a bit. Miss Montojo, are you there? Oh, she's not there. Okay, I will call another person. So, Aubrey Lim, are you there?
Hi, sir.
Hi, Aubrey. Okay, same as Alex. This time 10. Can you give 10 actors, institutional or individual, that can have a view or can think about journalistic integrity?
Okay, game. Halos parehas natin kay Alex kanina eh. So, sabihin natin.
So, 8 na. Di may 8 ka na. Di 2 na lang. Sige, sino pa yung 2?
Kasi hindi ko maalala lahat ng sinabi ni Alex. Did you say sir? Audiences, news audiences, sir.
Yeah, number 9.
Okay.
That's number 9. Yeah, definitely
Okay.
our part.
Tapos, news organizations, producers, sino pa ba? Journalistic integrity. Sir, counted din po ba yung those who are being interviewed, subjects being interviewed?
Yeah, definitely yes. Sources, definitely yes, because the mere fact that they're being interviewed, they have a direct view of who this journalist is, especially if they read them frequently. Yes.
Okay. Teka,
So
sir,
si
kailangan ba
Aubrey,
okay na yun?
yeah. So si Aubrey, thank you very much, Aubrey. So si Aubrey, ginawa niya the answers of Alex plus 2, 3. Oh yeah, very good, Aubrey and Alex. Thank you very much. Now you wonder why I asked them to recite. It is because the exercise here is this. For compass number 1, yes, a phenomenon like or a variable like journalistic integrity can be viewed at by these different actors, institutional or individual. All you need to do is to just choose 1 or 2, and that's enough for your subjects for your research. So journalistic integrity by sources, journalistic integrity by political players, journalistic integrity by editors. So that alone is already fitting for you to conduct your research project. Okay, so let me now go back. I will change again the display settings, just a moment. Okay, can you see the whole slide? Sorry. It's a whole slide or it's are you seeing differently something on screen?
Sir,
We
di po
can
siya
see 2
whole
slides.
slide.
We can see
Oh.
2 slides.
Oh nga eh. Just a moment. Just a moment. Let me stop share again, just a moment. Just a moment. Yeah, what happened here? Just a moment. Okay. Just a moment again. Okay, show taskbar. All right, and then share screen once again. Okay. Okay. I guess you're seeing the full screen now. I hope so. So that is the point of compass number 1. If you're able to identify the actors given a variable, you can just select 1 or 2 of them. That's enough for your research subjects. But among the compasses, this is important too. Which layer of the human experience? And this is the variable that I was talking about. Alan de Guzman kind of equated the variable in qual to a layer of the human experience. So a human experience can be as broad as my forehead, but you can only study so much. So you choose which layer, okay? And even in that simple layer or layers, it already carries some multiple layers of meaning already. So what I will do for another recitation, and I would like to ask one academic here to identify the layer or the layers of human experience. Huwag kayong magugulat kung at first magkakamali kayo. Okay lang yun, nagkamali din ako dun sa una. So with your permission, Dean Hemadi, would you like to turn your mic on? Sorry. Hello?
Hello.
Hi, Dean.
Yeah,
Hi.
yeah.
Long time no
Hello.
see.
Oo.
Okay. So, Dean, so what I will ask you to do first is I will ask, pasensya na kung say yung 5 na, to read a title, and then from the title, you identify the layer or the layers of the human experience. Okay?
Sir Jeremiah, come again.
Oh,
Pasensya
sorry.
na choppy
Nawawala
ka
ka na
sa
sa biyahe
akin.
ka pala.
Yan
Oo nga. Oo nga, nawawala siya.
sa
Okay.
biyahe ako eh.
Okay. Okay,
So
Dean, I'm sorry.
sorry.
I'll just call someone else. Okay, I'll just call someone else. Okay. Sorry, I'm nga pala nasa biyahe pala si Dean. Nix Montojo, are you there already?
How about si Ate Kai Ordinaryo?
O si Kai, o sige si Kai. Okay, Carissa of the UST Joint Program. Kai, can you turn on your mic? This is just 1-2 minutes. Don't worry. Hello? Hello, Kai. Naku, may coverage pa yun sa ito.
Sorry, nagsusulat.
Ayun, nagsusulat. Ayun na nga. So, Kai, ganito gagawin natin na ipapabasa ko sa iyo bawat title dito and then you tell me the layer or the layers of human experience in the title. Okay, Kai, can you start with the first bullet? Sorry, this is just 1-2 minutes.
A Q methodology study of the ontology of happiness among seasoned Filipino journalists.
Okay, what's your layer or layers of the human experience? What word?
Happiness.
Correct. That's a correct answer. Second bullet, please.
A phenomenography of the news sourcing beliefs and practices of provincial journalists from the Philippines.
All right. What's your answer?
Beliefs and practices.
Okay. Just to make it more specific, news sourcing beliefs and practices. Thank you very much, Kai. Third.
Deconstructing the notion of blame in editorial miscues. So notion of blame.
Or blame. Thank you. Good. Number 4.
Understanding the elements of empathy as a component of care-driven newsroom leadership, a branded theory. Empathy. Elements
Correct.
of empathy.
That's the correct answer. And finally, final bullet.
The needs, preferences, moods, and frustrations of Filipino photojournalists after retiring from active duty. So, needs, preferences, moods, and frustrations.
Very good, Miss Ordinario. Thank you very, very much for your participation. I'm sorry to have bothered your daily work for Business Mirror. So thank you very much, Kai. So
yes, boss.
So given the answer, so this is what I was talking about. So if you read the working titles here, now you can already have a sense what the research is focusing on happiness among seasoned journalists, on empathy as part of care-driven newsroom leadership. So ayan. So if you're and when you identify each layer of the human experience, that drives you now to find references on happiness, and happiness vis-a-vis journalism. Hindi mo lang sa journalism hahanapin po yan. You can find those references in other disciplines. And I say about happiness because there's a recent book 2 weeks ago on happiness by journalists. And that book was able to also source out material from other disciplines. Definitely psychology is included here. So that is the thing for compass number 2. If you're able to identify the layer or layers of the human experience, then you find the related literature on news sourcing beliefs and practices, on blame in the context of editorial mistakes, on retirement, but focusing on those variables. And on this score, in Qual, we usually say that the layer or layers of human experience here are blank spots. Blank spots meaning hindi pa sila masyado napapag-aralan. At kaya nagka-qual kasi doon mag-uumpisa. And in fact, many theories in the social sciences actually started off with qual and then they empiricized it through quant. So I hope compass number 3 is kind of clear to the people in the room. And this is the challenge for us research methods teachers, that when we try to brainstorm topics with students, what is the variable? For qual, if you're doing qual, what is the layer of the human experience? Okay. Compass number 3, what question to ask? So this is the research question, but for this purpose, for this compass, we will borrow from John Creswell and borrow from his work among 4 of 5 usually employed qualitative research designs. A research design is the general strategy for our research. Okay, so therefore, a qual design definitely fits a precise research question. And what are these research questions? So there are 4 that I will share here. If the question is about the life experiences of an individual and how they unfold over time. Sa Tagalog, anong nangyari? Sa kabataan, anyari. And the type of question is chronological or story-oriented. If the question is about developing an in-depth understanding about how different cases provide insights into an issue or a unique case. So ang tanong in Filipino, bakit nangyari? And the type of question is in-depth and descriptive. If the question is about experiences over time or changes that have stages and phases, at first, you became a rookie. And then after 2 years, let's say you have developed confidence. And then on your 5th year, you have become a seasoned veteran. And then stage 4, let's say you are now mentoring younger journalists. So the type of research question here is process-oriented. And the question is, paano nangyari? And finally, if the question is about the essence that all persons experience about a phenomenon, the essence of being a woman, as a previous Miss Universe edition would say. So ang tanong ay, ano nga talaga o ano ang kahulugan ng nangyari? And the type of question is essence. So to drive home the point of compass number 3, and I will show this next slide several times to showcase the congruence, a precise research question fits a specific research design. Anong nangyari? Story-oriented question. The design is narrative. In-depth descriptive research question. The design is case study. Bakit nangyari? Process-oriented question. The question is, paano nangyari? The precise design is grounded theory. That famous qualitative research design first started by Barney Glaser and Anselm Strauss in 1967. And then, ano nga talaga ang kahulugan na nangyari? The nature of the question is essence-oriented and the design is phenomenology. There are other research designs, but I will share at least 4 of them through this presentation. Okay, so ano nangyari? Narrative. Bakit nangyari? Case study. Paano nangyari? Grounded theory. And ano nga talaga ang kahulugan na nangyari? Phenomenology. Compass number 4, which is compass number 4, what design to have? So, medyo pinaliwanag ko na sa inyo, ano nga yung katapat. So, story-oriented, narrative. Issue-oriented, case study. Process-oriented, grounded theory. And essence, phenomenology. So, compass number 4, basically, ayan yung second and third columns. Natatapat dun sa precise research design. Compass number 5. So where to get the data? Well, of course, for Qual, and this is the favorite for many Qual researchers, the mainstay is the interview. They call it the key informant interview. Others call it the expert interview. For as long as it is the interview, especially if the interviewee directly experience that phenomenon, journalistic integrity, or trust in journalists, or disinformation. Okay, and when you have the data, basically, the thrust later on is to analyze them and present it later as themes, and then putting the themes together into a coherent whole. And that is where from here, in a bit, with the permission of the organizers, I will show some Canva instructional videos. And the data can not only come from interviews, they can come from a variety of obtrusive and unobtrusive sources. Obtrusive means the data come from human participants themselves. Unobtrusive means, yes, they come from human participants, but they're already there and you cannot do anything about it. Like graffiti, or social media commentary, or photographs that are already in you or in your photo albums, or love letters or compositions or doodles that are already there. But if you're asking them to do a doodle, that is obtrusive data. Okay, so you can use these data sets for your Qual research, including a combination of some of these. And since the interview is the mainstay of qualitative research, we will be tasked to do what is usually called the interview guide. But in French, we call it the aid memoir. And the aid memoir basically is your major research instrument. The other research instrument for qual, if you're doing interviews, is what is called the respondent's profile sheet. Or in Dutch, it's called the robot photo. ROBOTFOTO. Like profiling someone. So those two come in handy. The robot photo and the aid memoir. Okay? And the challenge for doing the aid memoir is to base your questions from the literature. So that is the challenge. So if I may, and this is the first Canva video, and the videos are aptly called by a student as Quali Serie. I will first show the video on making the aid memoir. With your permission, I will stop share and stop this presentation, and I will play. Oh, sorry, it's already prepared. Sorry. I will now share the video. And please let me know if you can hear it.
Hashtag Qualiserie. Paano?
Can you hear it? Is it loud? Hello? Hello?
Yes, po. Yes, po.
Naririnig
I
ko.
can hear it.
Okay,
We
we'll
can
start
hear it.
again. We'll start again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Hashtag Qualiserie. Paano gumawa ng aid memoir na mas mabilis pa sa paglimot sa inyong ex? Ang aid memoir ay isang salitang Pranses na kumakahulugan sa isang bagay na nakatutulong sa memorya. Aid memoir. An aid to memory. Isa ang aid memoir sa pinakamahalagang katulong ng mga kwalitatibong mananaliksik sa pag-uungkat ng inaaral nating ganas. Nga lang, kung kayo ay nag-move on, ay huwag na ninyo ituloy ang video na ito dahil baka maalala ninyo ang inyong mga ex. Sa unang sulyap, mukhang magkahalintulad ang isang aid memoir at ang isang survey questionnaire. Ngunit sila ay magkaiba. Una, ang aid memoir ay ginagamit sa isang kwalitatibong pananaliksik o hindi kaya sa isang mixed method study na mayroong kwalitatibong component or study. Ikalawa, kalimitan, ang mga katanungan sa aid memoir ay hindi nasasaklaw o masasaklaw ng isang kwantitatibong survey questionnaire. Tulad na lamang ng tanong na, gaano mo minahalang yung ex? Explain in no less than 1,000 words. Ngunit katulad ng paggawa ng survey questionnaire, may proseso rin ng paglikha ng isang aid memoir. Una, kailangan alam ng mananaliksik ang kanyang nais maging pag-aaral. Saan ba patungkol ang thesis topic ninyo? Bakit ito ang thesis topic ninyo? Sa madaling sabi, nagasgas na ba ninyo ang tinatawag na related literature o ang mga pananaliksik na magkakamag-anak? Ikalawa, matapos namnamin ang pag-uungkat at pagtuklas sa relasyon ng bawat literature, oras na para sa pagsasalansan. Isa-isayang ilatag sa isang table ang mga definition ng inyong danas sang-ayon sa inyong mga nahalugog at naapuhap na related literature. I-highlight ang mga makabuluhang bahagi ng hulugan hango sa bawat literatura para mayroon tayong counting point of emphasis. Kung ayaw ninyo i-highlight, i-bold nyo na lang. Total ang susunod na hakbang naman ay may kaugnay sa paghuhubad ng mga kahulugang ito. Ang ikatlong hakbang ay ang paglilista. Ilista ninyo ang tinatawag na mga a priori codes mula sa inyong mga highlight o binold na bahagi ng kahulugan ng inyong mga danas. Ang a priori codes ay kumakahulugan lamang sa inyong theoretical deduction ng kahulugan ng isang danas. Sa madaling sabi, pinasimpleng kahulugan. Tingnan ang halimbawa sa inyong mga screen. Matapos nito, isa-isa na kayong gumawa ng mga katanungan sang-ayon sa a priori codes at mga kahulugan ng inyong nakalam. Ang pang-apat na hakbang ay ang paglilinis. Hindi lahat ng katanungan na nais nating itanong ay kailangang itanong. O hindi kaya ay maaaring may mas mainam na katanungan. Halimbawa, kung dalawang katanungan na halos magkapareho lamang ang ninanais kapuntahan tulad ng to the moon ay pagsamahin natin sila at gawing isang makabuluhang tanong. Makabuluhang tanong, hindi makaguluhang tanong. Kaakibat ng paglilinis ay ang pagtatakda. Kailangang siguraduhin natin na ang ating mga katanungan ay sapat upang masaklaw ang bawat aspekto ng danas na ating inaaral. Sa gayon, magkakaroon tayo ng isang holistic na pagsipat sa ating piniling danas. Si Dr. Alan de Guzman ay may 4 na level ng pagtatanong: factual, perceptual, procedural, experiential. Factual, mga katanungang tumutukoy sa tuwirang impormasyon na nais nating malaman mula sa ating mga Key Informant Interviews or KII. Kailan ba natutong magsulat? Kailan mo na-realize na mahal mo pala ang crush mo? Sino ang crush mo? Saan ka nakatira? Perceptual questions, mga katanungang tumutukoy sa perceptual pananaw ng KII patungkol sa isang bagay na kaugnay sa danas na inaaral. Anong tingin mo sa K-pop? Sumasang-ayon ka pa ba sa plant-based meat? At bakit? Procedural questions, mga katanungang tumutukoy sa isang proseso. Paano mo sinisimula ng isang araw? Paano ka nagsusulat? At bilang panghuli ay ang mga experiential question, mga tanong na nais tumpukin ang kaibuturan ng isang danas, ang pakiramdam ng KII at tumatakbo sa kanyang isipan ang kanyang mga alaala. Anong nararamdaman mo nang manalo ka ng isang award? Anong tumatakbo sa isip mo nang manalo ka ng isang award? Upang mas mainam nating maintindihan ang mga ito, gumawa tayo ng isang halimbawa. Ang danas na ating inaaral ngayon ay pagmamahal. Pagmamahal. Ano ang sabi ng literatura? Ang pagmamahal ay pagsasakripisyo ng walang hinihinging kapalit. Ang pagmamahal ay pagbili ng chicken joy at ibinibigay ang balat nito sa taong minamahal. Ang pagmamahal ay pag-intindi sa pagkakaiba ng dalawang nagmamahalan. Ngayon, gagawa tayo ng mga a priori code sa bawat kahulugang mayroon tayo. Sabihin nating sakripisyong walang kapalit para sa una, selflessness para sa ikalawa, at compromise para sa ikatlo. Sa ganitong paraan, mas madali nating nauunawaan ang mga kahulugan ng ating piniling danas. Hindi mo na kailangang alalahanin ang balat ng chicken joy, selflessness na lamang. Ngayon, gumawa tayo ng mga tanong base sa mga a priori code at base na rin sa literatura. Ano ang sakripisyo sa pagmamahal? Bakit ka nagmamahal? Nagsakripisyo ka na ba para sa iyong minamahal? Kailan? Bakit? Humingi ka ba ng kapalit sa iyong minamahal? May punto sa inyong relasyon na naging magpagpalaya ka? How do you compromise with your lover? At ngayon, bilang panghuli, tayo naman ay magtatakda sang-ayon sa mga level ng katanungang natutuhan natin mula kay Dr. Alan de Guzman. Makikita ninyo sa inyong mga screen ang isang buong tapos na memoir na halimbawa para sa inyo. Ngayon, narito lamang ang ilang mga punto sa pagkata ng mga katanungan. Ilan ba dapat ang mga katanungan? Walang tiyak na alintutunin pagdating sa bilang ng mga katanungan. Ngunit, sentido komon na lamang ang magtatakda. Huwag naman 100 questions. Ang sweet spot sa bilang ng tanong ay pakiramdaman ninyo. Alam ninyo sa sarili ninyo kung sapat na ang mga katanungan upang masaklaw ang lahat ng aspekto ng danas na nais ninyong malaman at maaral. Use how and why questions more. Doon tayo sa mga katanungang mas mapapaisip at mapapaalala ang ating mga KII. Iwasan ang mga yes or no questions. Kung wala pang yes sa sagot sa katanungan mong crush ka ba ng crush mo, huwag mo nang idamay ang mga KII. Ask more experiential and perceptual questions. Sa ganitong paraan, lalo nating susulyapan kung ano ang tumatakbo sa isipan at naglalakad sa damdamin ng ating KII. Panghuli, seek anecdotes. Makinig tayo sa mga kwento. Hanapin natin ito. Kung posible lang, itanong sa KII kung may particular ba na punto sa kanilang experience na maaari nilang ibahagi sa inyo. Mas napapatibay ng mga anecdotes ang pagsisiyasat natin sa isang abstraktong danas. Halimbawa, pagbibigay ng balat ng chicken joy, pagmamahal. Muli, ang 5 hakbang sa paglikha ng isang aid memoir, pag-aaral, pagsasalansan, paglilista, paglilinis at pagtatakda. 4 na uri ng mga katanungan sa isang aid memoir ayon kay Dr. De Guzman: factual, perceptual, procedural, at experiential. Maraming salamat sa panonood ng ating #Qualiserie. Hanggang sa muli.
Okay, so that is the first video. So at least in a short amount of time, we were able to understand the 5th compass and the 6th compass in respect, which is how to make the aid memoir. Okay, if I may go back to my slides, just a moment. Okay. Then I will show at least 2 more videos so that we could skip the slides here, because if you have listened to the video, I think you can easily understand how to like, for example, make the aid memoir or the interview guide. So basically, the last 2 columns from your construction of the aid memoir, these form part of your aid memoir or the interview guide. Okay, so compass number 6, how many selection? And here there is a debate for qual, because the quant, they lambast the qual for only getting a few respondents, and that is their study. And because the quant people are so accustomed to having hundreds of respondents. But that's not the point of qual. The point of qual is meaning, depth, process, and what have you. So it is not after for generalizability or to make an observation valid to as many people. So that's why there are no rules for sample size in qualitative inquiry. It depends on what your research question is, what you want to know, the purpose, what's at stake, what will be useful, what will give you credibility, and what can be done with the available time and resources that you have. That's why I will again show the table. There you go. If you do narrative design, the nature of the question is story-oriented, 1 to 2 subjects is okay. If you're doing case study method, in-depth descriptive type of research questions are answered here, 1 to multiple cases. But in the case study method, ladies and gentlemen, I think it will not be enough for you to gather interview data, but you may need to have other data sources like documents or observation or participant observation in some instances. Grounded theory, the type of the question is process-oriented, and for the methodologies doing grounded theory, the minimum is 20. More than 20, the better. And some would argue about what is called I forgot the term, sorry. Yung pag itatanong mo na sa susunod, let's say on the 21st or on the 31st, wala nang bagong sasabihin sa'yo. So, ibig sabihin, it gives you a cue na wala nang bagong data na makukuha for you. So, tumigil ka na. I will remember the name of that concept later. But for grounded theory, the minimum is 20. Phenomenology, the type of research question is essence. Therefore, you're trying to get the meaning of the lived experience or of the lived experience from these people. Minimum is 3 to 13. If you want to have more than 13, the better. Okay. Now we go to compass number 7. And this is the toughest compass, because this is now the analysis part. Sa quant, kaya matagal yung quant kasi yung pagkuha ng survey respondents, that's one of them. And then number 2, you need to work with a statistician, or if you know statistics, and then you have the software to run the data. And even before you go there, lilinisin mo pa sila through encoding and double checking and triple checking. Sa qual naman, kaya matagal dahil dito. Siyempre, ang assumption niyo po sa compass number 7 is that you have already transcribed your interviews. You have already jotted down your notes. And if you have observations, whether during the interviews or during your fieldwork, which are called memos, you have jotted down your memos. And the thrust here is to reduce the data into meaningful units that later on become the theme. And yes, there is a dedicated Qualiserie video for this. That's why I would like to devote more time to the video, which can better explain compass number 7. But basically, this is what we're after, from the naive understanding to the comprehensive understanding. This is also what we're after if we want to know some steps to do, from first identifying quotable quotes, as we call it in journalism, or significant statements, to categorizing data, to developing themes, and then later on to validate the themes. And when we look at the transcript, please take note of these concepts: anchor and referent, anchor specific words, and referent specific instances. For example, Filipino journalists are skilled in numbers. That's an anchor. And then what's a referent? For example, 3 business newspapers, according to a study, were found to explain the numbers and their meanings to people. Another study found that from a survey of 100 journalists shows that journalists are well versed in explaining sports results that are quantitative. So that is an example of an anchor and then a referent. And you will try to identify these while you're analyzing the data. And then we have cool and warm analysis. Yung cool, the cool analysis, you're trying to gather the significant statements and categorize them. And then the warm analysis, you are now here to make the themes, make sense of the sub-themes, and then make the themes, and then validate the themes later on. So to further explain compass number 7, let's go to our second Qualiserie video. Just a moment. Sorry, can you see? Sorry. I'll stop share first. Sorry. I'll do it again. Sorry. Just a moment. Okay, then stop share screen. Number 3.
Maligayang pagbabalik.
Okay. Oops. Bakit naman? Just a moment. Can you see a video, students? Can you see a video on screen?
We can see the Qualiserie qualitative data analysis with
theory. Oh, yeah, with thematizing. Okay.
Yeah,
Time to play.
Thank you.
Just a moment. What's happening here? Oh, it's loading. Just a moment. It's loading. Just a moment. Or for the meantime, if you have questions, ladies and gentlemen, so far, if you have questions, especially the students, it seems to be loading. I kind of prepared this earlier. But basically for compass number 7, the thrust here, and this is the time-consuming part, is from the voluminous number of transcripts, you will try to call the quotable quotes that directly answer your questions, given, of course, your research questions. And then you will now develop the themes and the sub-themes. Let me try to refresh. And let's see if this can play already.
Maligayang pagbabalik sa Qualiserie. Sa video na ito, hindi tungkol sa mga nag-aaway-away na influencers kuno ang ating tatalakayin. Kung hindi, kung papaano pagsasagupain ang inyong mga datos o kung tinatawag na data analysis. Ang pinaka-fundamental na data analysis method na dapat matutuhan ng isang qualitative researcher ay ang tinatawag na thematizing o thematic analysis. Sa madaling sabi, ang thematic analysis ay pagsasalansan ng mga kwalitatibong datos sa layong makabuo ng mga theme o tema. Ang tema ay isang malawak na grupo ng mga danas na may isang pinagbuklod na mensahe saysay, pananaw, at sumasagot sa ating mga research question. Bago tayo magsimula sa bawat hakbang ng thematizing, tandaan natin ang acronym na ito. Tema. Themes encompass meanings always. Babalikan natin yan mamaya. Ano? Sana all binabalikan? Huwag na. Moving forward, narito ang mga hakbang na tatalakayin natin. Pagsasatitik, pagpunawa, pagpapaikli, pagsasalansan, pagpapahinga, at pagsisinsin. Unang hakbang, transcription o tinatawag kong pagsasatitik. Pinaalalahanan ko na kayo sa naunang video na dapat ay nakarecord ang ating mga panayam upang ito ay lubusan nating matranscribe. Letra kada letra, salita kada salita, hinga kada hinga. Sa usaping transcription, maaaring kayo mismo mag-transcribe kung kakayanin ng inyong mga oras. Kung hindi naman, maaari kayo kumuha ng ibang taong gagawa nito. Tandaan, kung kukuha kayo ng ibang transcriptionist, mahalagang sabihan sila in verbal o mas mainam in writing na hindi maaaring lumabas sa kung saan-saan ang kanilang madirinig mula sa mga recording. Strictly confidential, tulad ng pondo ng DepEd. Second step, pag-unawa sa inyong mga datos. Tandaan, aanhin ang paggawa kung walang pag-unawa. Kasi kung hindi, sa dulo, kayo rin ang siyang kawawa. Namnamin ang bawat sagot ng inyong mga KII. Basahin ng paulit-ulit. Read and re-read. Hanggang sa maumay, walang problema. Ang mahalaga, hindi lang naiintindihan, kung hindi, nauunawaan. Alamin kung nasagot ba ng matiwasay ang inyong mga katanungan. Kung hindi, ano ang kulang? Kailangan ba ng follow-up? Kailangan ba ng karagdagang katanungan? Tandaan na hindi dahil kayo mismo ang nag-interview ay lubusan na ninyong maunawaan ang kanilang mga kasagutan. Madalas, habang binabasa ng mga transcription, saka natin nakikita ang kabuuang kabuluhan ng mga sagot ng ating KII. Sa puntong ito, mahalagang ma-highlight ninyo ang mga may katuturan, saysay at kabuluhang mga sagot ng inyong KII na makatutulong upang mabigyang liwanag ang inyong mga research question. Ang mga i-highlight ninyo ay tinatawag na MU o meaning unit. Mga unit na may meaning unit. Pwede rin naman na ang MU ay mutual unawaan dahil nagkaigi na kayo ng inyong mga KII. At least, kahit pa paano, may naka-MU kayo. At buti pa ang MU, may meaning. Ang ikatlong hakbang ay ang coding mismo o paglikha ng mga maliliit na label sa mga sagot ng ating mga KII. Tinatawag ko itong pagpapaikli. Sa pagpapaikli natin ng mga kanilang mga kasagutan, mahalagang hindi mawala ang kanilang katuturan o halaga. Ginagawa ang pagpapaikli upang madaling magawa ang susunod na hakbang, ang pagsasalansan ng mga datos. Tandaan, sa thematic analysis lang ito ginagawa, hindi sa pagmamahal. Kaya huwag mong hayaang malitin nila ang iyong halaga. May naliit ka na, wala ka pang label. Ang unang bahagi ng coding ay ang pagpapaikli. Nakapapagod nga naman basahin ang mga sagot ng KII. Sa pagpapaikli, lilikha tayo ng mga tinatawag na condensed meaning unit o pinaiklang version ng isang meaning unit. Sa prosesong ito, maaaring paikliin ang isang meaning unit sa pamamagitan ng pag-aalis ng mga salitang hindi makaaapekto sa kabuuang mensahe ng isang sagot. Ang nais natin ay matira yung may silbing mga salita. Hindi katulad ng mga pangako niya sa iyo. Walang silbi. Ang ikalawang bahagi ng coding ay ang coding mismo o paglalagay ng code or label sa kada condensed meaning unit. Sa puntong ito, mas paikliin pa natin ang CMU o condensed meaning unit sa pamamagitan ng pagtatakda ng isang code na nagkakahulugan ng 2 o 3 salita o maaaring isang parirala o phrase na bumubuod sa saysay ng bawat CMU. Magulo ba? Singgulo ng label nyo. Ang pagkukode ay tulad ng pagbibigay palayaw ninyo sa inyong mga kaibigan. One true bestie, best friend, BFF. O hindi kaya label ng inyong mga damdamin. Tropa premium, no strings attached, one that got away, TL. the one. Ang susunod na hakbang ay ang mismong thematizing o pagsasalansan. Pero para sa instructional video na ito, iisa-isahin natin. Kaya tawagin natin ang ika-4 na hakbang na categorization, ang unang bahagi ng pagsasalansan. Sa categorization, ang layon natin ay makabuo ng mga kategorya sa paghahanap ng relasyon sa mga CMU. Sa prosesong ito, kailangan tandaan ang 3 bagay: similar, related, at different. Una, similar. Ano-ano ang mga CMU na magkakapareho? Magkakapareho in the literal form, meaning pare-parehong salita ang mga ginamit sa kanilang mga kasagutan. O hindi kaya ay magkakapareho sa ibig sabihin. Halimbawa, ako ay mabait at ako ay mabait. Similar. Related. Anong mga CMU ang magkakaugnay? Madalas, tinitingnan natin ito sa pagkakaugnay ng kanilang sinasabi o saysay. Halimbawa, ako ay mabait at ako ay matulungin. Mga pawang sagot na tumutukoy sa kabutihang loob. Ikatlot huli, different. Ito ay mga CMU na may saysay at ambag sa pagsagot sa inyong research question, ngunit walang kahalintulad at kaunay. Mga stand-alone. Sa pagbuo ng mga kategorya, kakailanganin nating lagyan ito ng mga label na maaaring 2 salita lamang o hindi kaya isang parirala. Huwag na kayong mapagod, at least dito magkaka-label kayo. Ikategorya ang mga CMU ayon sa inyong kagustuhan at kaunawaan. Huwag mahihiya. Magkakaroon tayo ng pagkakataon upang ayusin at sinsinin sila. Ang mahalaga, ang bawat isang kategorya ay mayroong isang katangiang nagbubuklod sa bawat CMU. One that binds them all. Ika nga. Ikalimang hakbang at bahagi pa rin ng pagsasalansan ay ang mismong thematizing. Hooray! Malapit na kayong matapos. Malapit lang. Hindi sinabing matatapos na. Ang thematizing ay tulad din ng categorization. Sa halip, ang igugrupo ninyo ngayon ay ang mga kategory na inyong ginawa. And yes, similar, related, and different principles ulit ang ating paiiralin. Ang layon natin ay lalong pauntiin ang mga kategory at umantong sa ilang mga tema. Mga nasa 3 hanggang 5 tema kung maaari. Muling hanapin ang pagkakahalintulad, pagkakaugnay, at pagkakaiba ng inyong mga kategory upang bumuo ng isang panibagong grupong magsisilbing isang tema. Ang isang tema ay may katangian din nagbubuklod sa iba't ibang kategoryang nasa ilalim nito. Sa puntong ito, may 2 bagay na kailangang pang-isipin. Ikaw ba ay isang splitter o lumper? Ang isang splitter ay isang taong ginugustong mas maraming tema na may iba't ibang katangian. Samantala, ang isang lumper ay isang taong nais mas kaunti ang mga tema. Ang pagkakaiba ng dalawa, ang splitter ay gustong may 7 iba't ibang tema. Samantala, ang isang lumper ay gagawing 3 tema lamang, ang 7 na unang temang nagawa. The onti, the better ang motto. Maaari rin naman ang kategory na nabuo ninyo ay isa na talagang hustong tema. Kayo rin ang pagdidikta kung tama na ba ang inyong mga nabuong tema. Ang mahalaga, mapaunti natin ang mga kategorya. At huwag kalilimutan, kailangan din ng label ng bawat tema. At sa pagtatakda ng isang tema, ang label nito ay dapat mas encompassing, mas malawak ang nasasaklaw na kahulugang ipinababatid ng mga kategoryeng nasa ilalim nito. At gayon din ang mga CMU yung nasa loob nito. Tema. Ano nga ba ulit ang tema? Themes, encompass, meanings, always. Ika-6 na hakbang ay ang pagpapahinga. Magpahinga muna tayo bago dumating sa ika-7 hakbang. Sa puntong ito, hindi malayong pagod na kayo. Pagal sa haba ng inyong dinanas. Hindi naman talaga ganon kahirap mag-thematize. Magtrabaho lamang. Magwalwal kayo ng ilang araw. Gumala, matulog, mag-bebe time at iba pa. Regain your strength. At kapag ready na ulit, tara, step 7 na tayo. Ika-7 hakbang, pagsisinsin. Sinsinin ang ginawang mga kategory at tema. Tama ba ang pagkakagrupo nila? Ang pagkakahalintulad at pagkakaugnay. Ang kanilang mga label, may angas ba? May dating? Akma ba? Ang pagka-thematize ay hindi basta-basta. Hindi rin naman ito mahirap. Mabusisi lamang. Ang mahalaga, nakikitaan natin ang liwanag ng kasagutan sa ating mga research question. Ang thematic analysis, kadalasan ay inductive approach from general to specific. Mula sa sangkaterbang sagot ng mga KII tungo sa iilang tema. At dyan nagtatapos ang ating video for today. Naway may natutuhan kayong kabulastugan. Maraming salamat sa suporta sa ating Quali serye. Hanggang sa muli.
All right, that is the second video that I will share. There's just one more to complete the qualitative research compass, but at least through that video, it's the lengthiest of the videos. That is in a nutshell how to thematize the data. This because in qual the data analysis part is the toughest. It is the one that takes a lot of time actually. So let me go back to my slides. So at least the video has kind of told us in just a few minutes what to do. I'll just share to you some tools that are being used. These are what they look like. Actually, you can thematize your data using either some of these tools, or you can do it manually or using software. And software include, let's say, Max QDA or Max Qualitative Data Analysis or NVivo. And there are others like Delve, which is, I think, the cheaper one that is also web-based. But regardless if manual or electronic, you can, the end point here is to follow the instructions that the video had taught us. Okay, so the video has also taught us what is the theme. The thing that we're after for is to answer research questions via identifying the themes. Okay, compass number 8, we are now in the second to the last, how to validate the findings. And if quant validates and looks at the reliability and validity of survey or content analysis results using statistical tests like Cronbach's alpha. For content analysis, there are a few like Flay's kappa. And validity and reliability are important for quant because if the threshold is low, there's a explanation for that. The answers given to you may not be too reliable or valid. For qual, the things that we will suggest to you are correspondence, critical friend, and member checking. And on this score, to further explain these three, let me now go to the third video. Can you see it? Now I'm ready to play. Thank you.
Maligayang pagbabalik sa Quali serye. Congrats! At umabot na kayo sa ika-4 na yugto ng seryeng ito. Hashtag Road to Forever na ba? Sa episode na ito, pag-uusapan natin ang data validation sa qualitative research at kung paano nga ba isinusulat ang ating mga finding. Tandaan, ang susunod na mga hakbang ay mahalaga sa inyong pananaliksik, lalong-lalo na kung gusto ninyong pumasa at graduate. Madako muna tayo sa validation. Mahalaga ang data validation sa qualitative research upang masiguro na nasuyod natin ang ibuturan ng ating sinasaliksik na datas. Sa pamamagitan ng data validation, nagkakaroon tayo ng dagdag na integridad, kredibilidad, at tiwala na tama ang ating sinagawa at pag-aanalisa. Kung minsan nga, naghahanap tayo ng validation mula sa ating mga friend, pa-FB man o offline. Sa thesis pa kaya, yung feelings mo sa kanya, validated, diba? Narito ang ilan sa mga madalas na nire-recommendang data validation pagdating sa qualitative research. Peer debriefing o critical friend technique, correspondence, at member checking. Sa tatlong ito, correspondence ang pinakamabisa at mainam, ngunit pinakamabusising pamamaraan ng pagbabalida o validate ng ating mga finding. Sa ganitong validation technique, ibinabalik natin sa ating mga nakapanayam o KII ang ating mga finding. Sa kasong ito, ang mga tema. Isipin ninyo na binabaliktad natin ang sitwasyon. Noong tayo nangangalap ng kaalaman tungkol sa piniling danas, tayo nagsasagawa ng inductive approach. Ngayon, deductive naman. Tayo mismo ang lumalapit sa mga KII, yung mga na-interview, at hinahain sa kanila ang ating natagpuang mga tema. Tatanungin sila kung ito nga ba'y sumasalin sa kanilang mga sagot at dinanas. Maaaring gawin ng correspondence sa mismong mga KII maghanap pa ng karagdagang AI. Ibig sabihin, panibago, labas sa inyong mga naunang na interview. Kung kukuha ng panibagong AI, siguraduhin pasok pa rin sila sa inyong inclusion criteria. Ipresenta lamang sa kanila ang inyong mga tema o data findings at hayaan silang kumpirmahin kung tama ang pagsasalarawan sa kanilang mga danas. Sunod naman ay ang tinatawag na peer debriefing o critical friend technique. Isa ito sa mga madalas magamit ng mga qualitative researcher dahil sa bilis at inam ito. Isipin ninyo na lang na sa Who Wants to be a Millionaire kayo at kailangan ninyo ng tulong. Hashtag call a friend. Sa pagsasagawa ng ganitong teknik, kakailanganin ninyo ng panibagong tao na sisipat sa inyong mga finding. Kailangan ang taong ito ay maalam kahit paano pagdating sa research at hindi naging bahagi ng inyong pananaliksik mula pa noong una. Ang trabaho niya ay sipatin kung tama ang inyong ginawang thematizing at gayon din ang inyong mga naging tema. Kung sa tingin ng critical friend ay maayos naman ang naging thematizing at sinasaklaw naman ng inyong mga tema ang kabuuang danas ng inyong sinasaliksik, congrats! Validated na kayo. Ang susunod naman dito ay ang member checking. Ito naman ay isang paraan ng data validation kung saan isa sa inyong mga kasapi o kabahagi sa grupo sa pananaliksik ang siyang kikilatis ng inyong ginawang thematizing. Kadalasan, sa inyong mga kaso, ang gumagawa nito ay ang inyong mga thesis advisor. Bagamat epektibo naman ang validation method na ito, ay hindi ito madalas nire-recommendang gawin pagdating sa pananaliksik. Para kasi itong nanay mong nagsasabi sa inyo na magaling ka sa basketball kahit hindi ka naman marunong mag-dribble. Charing. Ayan. Muli, tatlong pinakamadalas na pamamaraan ng data validation. Correspondence, peer debriefing, o critical friend technique, at member checking. Ngayon, tutungo naman tayo sa kung paano sinusulat ang inyong findings. Tatangkain kong maging madali itong maintindihan sa abot ng aking pakakaya. Upang maisagawa ito, tutulungan tayo ng lamesa. Sa Ingles, table. Magic. Tada! Sa pagsusulat ng ating findings, lagi tayong magsisimula sa ating mga theme o tema. For this qualiserye, mag-focus lamang tayo sa isang tema o finding para hindi tayo masyadong malos in the woods. Halimbawa, ang ating research question ay ito. Paano humahanap ng jowa bells ang mga single bell this year? Ang ating unang finding ay pamamagatan natin o tatagurian nating technological needs. At ang temang ito ay magtataglay ng dalawang categories o sub-themes na nagngangalang mainstream channels at alternative channels. Ngayon, tulad ng nauna nating natalakay, bibigyan natin ng description ang bawat sub-theme na ito. Ang mainstream channels ay ang mga kadalasang platform na ginagamit sa paghahanap ng jowa bells tulad ng Facebook Messenger, Instagram, at dating apps. Samantala, ang alternative channels ay mga paraan ng paghahanap ng jowa na hindi popular sa karamihan at kadalasan ay tila ito ay isang quote-unquote underground. Sa mga mainstream platforms tulad ng alter accounts sa Twitter, Facebook groups, Reddit, at iba pa. Ngayon, mula rito, makagagawa tayo ng description ng ating kabuuang tema, description ng technological themes. Narito ang pakahulugan natin. Technological themes refer to digital live finding measures by the use through mainstream and alternative channels that involve social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter and their underground subcultures such as alter profiles. Saan galing yun? Ngayon, ang pinakahuling bubuo sa ating table ay ang mga direct quote ng ating mga AI sa bawat sub-theme. Dito, pipiliin lamang natin ang pinakamainam, pinakamalakas, pinakamakapangyarihang salaysay mula sa inyong mga nakapanayam na pinaninindigan nila ang saysay ng inyong mga sub-theme, the ones that embody it. Ngayon, kompleto na ang ating mga rekado sa pagsusulat. Gawin na natin itong in paragraph form. The first finding of this qualitative study is technological means which refers to digital love finding measures by the youth through mainstream and mainstream channels and alternative channels that involve social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter and their underground subcultures such as alter profiles. In mainstream channels, users seek their one true love through popular social media platforms such as Facebook Messenger, Facebook groups, Instagram, and dating applications like Grindr and Tinder. Respondents explain that social media allows them to easily connect with potential lovers not just locally, but around the world. Ang dami sa Facebook groups, grabe, mga Papa Paul. Respondents also verbalized that an alternative world for dating exists within the mainstream social media platforms through the use of so-called alter accounts and even to websites that allow people to take a different persona. They explained that these avenues allow them to find potential lovers who share immediate commonalities with them such as fondness for anime. Ang dami ko naging jowa sa other world. As in, mga 20. Ayan. Naway na tong kaya ninyo sa abot ng aking makakaya ang pinakamainam na pamamaraan kung paano isulat ang inyong mga finding. Ulitin lamang iyan with a certain type of variance in terms of writing sa mga iba pa ninyong finding. Tandaan, ang pagsusulat ng findings sa qualitative research ay isang pagkukwento. Pagmamarites, no? Sa mga chismis, inuman session na kwentuhan, at iba pa, alalahanin lamang yun. Kung ano sa tingin ninyo ang pinakamainam na paraan ng pagkukwento, subukan, angkain, huwag matakot, magkamali. Parang paghahanap ng jowa lamang yan. Sana, mabalidate na nila ang feelings nyo. Salamat at kita-kit sa susunod na Quali Serye.
Okay, so that ends the quali series. So at least for compass number 8, in that short amount of time, you got to learn how to validate the findings, and that is important before you write it down. Then you write it down. Okay, so let me now go and continue with compass number 9. This is the last compass. So I'll share my slides again. Just a moment. Just a moment. And anyway, these quali-serie videos will form part of the slides that I will share to everyone through the Journalism Studies Association of the Philippines. Okay. Okay, so that's compass number 8. So basically, compass number 9. So we are at the end of the journey. So you have written the findings already, and you have produced your qualitative paper. So at the end, what did you get after the journey? Of course, since we're dealing with lived experiences here, and there are certain truths told to us, you can surmise that these are half truths. Some of them may be genuine truths, for as long as you have woven them together and told a story. So to go back to this table that I've been showing earlier, the nature of the question is story-oriented. It's the narrative design with 1 to 2 subjects. And the product realized is moderatum generalization, moderate generalization, that's what it means. If the nature of the research question is issue-oriented, in-depth and descriptive, the design is case study, the realized product is lessons learned from such cases. If the research question is process-oriented, the design is grounded theory, so the outcome is a theory. And if the type of the research question is essence-oriented or meaning-oriented, the design is phenomenology. My apologies for a little grammatical error here. The outcome is a collective description. So for 9 compasses, we were able to learn qualitative methods. And this, admittedly, this shortcut was taught to us by Dr. Alan de Guzman as a means to produce our own qualitative research projects. And what Doc A basically, that's what you call him, what he basically did was to crack the code of how qualitative research is taught in books. And he produced this kind of a set of shortcuts for us, and which I have been teaching to my students. So for the final set of slides, with the permission of everyone, let me now go to the final part. This is not 20 minutes. I'll try to make this quick. In terms of ensuring rigor in qualitative research. So the guide question is how to put some spice into your project and what pains do we have to undergo. And I was earlier saying about methods and how do we try to penetrate the journals and to bridge the Philippine journalistic experience as documented through research to other settings. And journals are kind of meticulous about methods. And Doc A here, that's him. They kind of share a list of possible art research designs that you can use. Some of them are qual even. And in fact, during the pandemic, what he did was, because we cannot gather interview data, or we can, but it's electronic, he kind of dabbled into knowing unobtrusive research designs, particularly qualitative content analysis. And he had taught and implemented these. We have directed content analysis, which is theory-driven. We have manifest content analysis, which is appearance-driven. We have thematic content analysis that is patterns-driven. We have latent content analysis that is meaning-driven. And the more popular one also done by marketing researchers, sentiment analysis, which is emotion-driven. I'm sharing these things so that we could give ourselves ideas on what qualitative methods can be done, apart from the 4 that were presented earlier. So narrative, grounded theory, phenomenology, and case study. And then, of course, creativity, I think, can further emerge through mixed methods. And mixed methods is the putting together of the quant and the qual from the start of the research process until the end. And then it leads you to produce a broader meta-inference, or a broader inference. Mixed methods is called meta-inference. And mixed methods is a very prominent design for interdisciplinary research teams. And mixed methods also promotes what is called an inclusive science that attempts to respect and learn from all research traditions and branches of knowledge. And the thrust here, if I may quote the Japanese mixed methods researcher, is to develop a mixed methods way of thinking that is like making your cafe latte that goes beyond either the milk or the coffee. So what they had done, at least through my students in the past, for example, this project published in a Malaysian journal, we combined phenomenology with an inferential statistical method called structural equation modeling, and then we put them together through what mixed methods calls joint display tables, and then we produced this paper. And then another one which just got assigned a volume and issue number but published in 2021. This is about the internship. We kind of dabbled into our internship data, quant and qual. Quant through the internship evaluation forms. Qual, the students conducted interviews with mentors. And then what we did, another way to put some sense into qualitative data is to use word clouds, and then we made some thematic analysis, and then we combined them with structural equation modeling and produced this paper in this top journal called Journalism Practice. So the emphasis of making ourselves dare to do more rigor in terms of research, including qual research, is to keep watch of why your work can get published or not. And if I may share this, coming from the hotel and hospitality discipline, one reason why journal article submissions are being rejected is methodological. So to end the webinar with some reflection questions. So first, are you open or very close-minded to interdisciplinarity? And I think for journalism studies, interdisciplinarity will be the way to grow, to grow the discipline itself. Like, how do we understand fake news? Let's ask psychologists. And psychology has produced very interesting papers on fake news and why people fall for it. Second reflection question will be the role of mentoring. What will be the role of mentoring? And just to share some examples from our university, some of these students were mentored by colleagues to produce daring methodologies. For example, combining a methodology from linguistics that worked together with journalism plus key informant interviews. We got rejected on this, but we will submit to another journal. And then we also tried out or dabbled into a Japanese developed quant-qual methodology called personal attitude construct analysis, which is kind of inspired from psychological theory in determining why students of journalism during online classes get demotivated. This was also rejected and we're finding another journal. But don't give up for as long as you think and you're confident you have made an innovation and will contribute something new. And we do that by exercising humility, especially since even though we think that we have tried our best to do some innovative, groundbreaking methodologies from the Philippine end, note that there are others who may be better than us, in the hope that whatever contribution we give with humility, they can learn from us too. Another reflection question would be the collaboration between Metro Manila and the provinces. And I know even in journalism studies, even in journalistic practice, it seems to be a Metro Manila phenomenon, but we have the provinces out there who are also sources of knowledge about journalism and its study. So if we try to work with them together, we can promote a spirit of collective action, shared success, generosity, and humility. So with all these said, perhaps the final metaphor that I would like to share to everyone in this webinar on qual research and some bits of reflection journalism studies is to up the levels of play and dream big. Just like when the Japanese upset the Finnish in a FIBA World Cup group match recently. And with that, thank you very much. And I'm ready to accommodate your questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jere, for that exhaustive presentation of qualitative research methods. We are a bit pressed for time, no? So, but we would like to accommodate a few questions, no? So if we could be quick about it, no? You can unmute yourselves, and then please ask the question directly to Mr. Opiniano. But please identify yourself and your school or your organization or institution first. Maybe we could accommodate 2 or 3 questions. Okay? May mga katanungan po ba?
And before you ask questions, and anyway, since the session will be recorded, I hope the others who are not here, especially the members of the association, can have access to this video. And
That's
this can
true.
be used in your classes. And
That's
while
correct.
you're asking questions also, I would like to share the materials that I have, including the links to the video.
So actually quite a number expressed interest to attend the sharing session, although some of them told me that they have work commitments, no, on this particular schedule. So we are going to share with them, no, with the registered members of JSAP the recording of your presentation, no. So by the way, I would like to announce to everyone that we will issue certificates of participation or certificates of attendance, no, to all those who attended this event. And however, we would like you to first answer our feedback form. Okay, so the link to the feedback form is in the meeting group chat, no. One page lang naman yan, ano. So please accomplish the feedback form if you would like to get the certificate. So the certificate will be sent to your registered email addresses within the week, no. So please give us a little bit of time, no, to validate the names of the attendees, no, as to whether they're registered members of JSAP. And then once we do that, we will send your certificates, no. Also, along with those certificates of participation will be your certificates of membership in JSAP, no. So we promise to deliver those certificates within a 30-day period, no, the certificate of membership. Okay, may mga katanungan ba? Please don't be shy and unmute, no?
Or
Or
press
kung
the raise hand button
chat na lang kayo, no? You raise your hand,
or
revert
chat in the chat box.
chat your question, ano? Siguro ako na lang muna magtatanong, Jeremiah, no? So you mentioned a number of qualitative software, yung iba dyan online, halimbawa yung Delve, no? So does that substitute for human coding? Yan na. Can AI substitute for human coding?
The
Combination
software,
of themes, for instance.
the software, what it does, what was explained in the video earlier, is to identify the significant statements and then put them together. That's what it does. But when it comes to thematizing, using some of the tools there, it will be you who will thematize, not the software. So
Not the
whether
software.
you use Delve or MaxQDA or NVivo or whatever new or old qualitative data analysis software that comes out, that's the purpose of it. It just makes your first steps in coding and thematizing easier. Then you complete the cycle. Well, personally, I still do manual coding.
What do you think about using ChatGPT to generate questions for the aid memoir?
Good question. I think what ChatGPT can do is to find the reference. And then from there, if you find that reference helpful, then you do the a priori code and then the question itself. But for the ChatGPT to do the actual question for that answers your research question, I think that would be, we have yet to see that day come, I should say.
Okay, kasi maraming mga mga TikTok videos no na ginagamit nila yung AI to generate questions, no. So the guide questions that we can use to ask our key informants or mga participants sa focus group discussions, no. So it seems na that could be an ethical issue. That could become an ethical issue. If not now, baka ethical issue na siya ngayon. There could be some studies that are being done with questions that are generated from AI applications like ChatGPT.
Yeah, but in the end naman, since you will ask the questions and you will get data from the interviewees, I think in the end, the big intervention the researcher will still come in, which is the traditional one, which was explained in the videos earlier, which is to select the statements and then make the condensed meaning units and then the codes and then the subthemes and the themes. So in the end, I think that whole process ChatGPT cannot do it, or any other artificial intelligence software. As I've said, that's why I still do manual coding, because maliban sa just for me, medyo mahirap maniobrahin yung mga software. Ang magagawa naman talaga ng software yung pag-call ng significant statements and then make the initial putting together. And then you can use some of the tools of the QDA. But in the end, ikaw pa rin ang magtatapos. Because ChatGPT is not the researcher, it's you.
As a research director, siguro na-encounter nyo itong issues na to, no? So you want to publish and maybe in the publication that you are targeting, they have a requirement as to clearances, no, for research ethics, no. So is that an issue in journalism studies? Meron bang would you recommend any ethics board, no, na pwedeng pagpasahan ng mga researchers in journalism studies?
Well, for the Philippines, research ethics is quite a new phenomenon, although it has been there for over 30 years in developed countries. And many universities, regardless if they're journalism schools or not, are kind of rattled with research ethics because of the laborious steps to take and then the waiting time just for you to start the study. And of course, research ethics is governed in the Philippines by what is called the Philippine Health Research and Ethics Board, or the FREB, which is under the Department of Science and Technology. For the social sciences, we have the Philippine Social Science Council. That is a social science tailored research ethics board, and I invite all of you to submit to that ethics board. Now, there's also a debate in developing countries, and I found this from a Saint Scholastica professor. Kasi sabi niya, at with data to back up, dahil hindi pa naman natin gamay yan, merong mga tinatawag na quote-unquote surrogate research ethics, meaning there could be mechanisms where in their ethics boards that are not accredited by the FREB, but they follow the principles of research ethics from teaching them up to implementing the data, and then you implement. And then in the end, and ethically, you have undergone the process of doing research ethically. But of course, they would recommend going to to an ethics board that is affiliated or accredited by the FREM. Meron kasing iba na hindi pa accredited pero they accept. And I guess their research ethics clearances coming from these yet to be accredited ethics boards are very much acceptable, very much acceptable.
Thank you. Okay, questions from members of the audience? Meron po ba? Just raise your hand or unmute. Quickly identify yourselves in your institution. Mukhang wala. But anyway, kung wala pong tanong, maybe later may tanong po kayo. Do not hesitate to send questions our way, and we will forward it to Mr. Opiniano. At any rate, his email address is here, jmopiniano@usc.edu.ph. You might want to send your questions to him directly. Okay, so di ko na po papatagalin because we have the Dean of the College of Communication of the Polytechnic University of the Philippines, Dr. Hemati Mora, to deliver today's closing remarks. No? So, Dean Hemati, salamat po for taking time to attend our Usap JSAP webinar.
Yeah, good afternoon everyone. Good afternoon to fellow academicians, to our students who attended here, sa mga teachers din, journalism teachers and faculty, and also ang mga ka-JSAP. Thank you for, finding time to learn from our webinar for today. So this has been a very productive and interesting afternoon listening to the lecture of our guest speaker. Thank you very much in behalf of JSAP, Sir Jeremaiah Opiniano, for the eye-opening inputs in the field of journalism studies. And, I consider them also valuable in upgrading ourselves in the field of research. I personally felt that I was attending a refresher course in research methods, but customized for the journalism discipline. So we were all listening intently because we all know that we need to boost and level up our research production in the field of journalism. And we need to also find enjoyment in research, diba? In order to engage ourselves in this activity. It's one thing to do research out of compliance, another thing to do it with, the kind of passion for research that was imparted by you. Sa totoo lang nakaramdam, I think we need that kind of passion for research. Because without that, magiging parang compliance lang for study requirements and everything. So we need to find depth and meaning in research in order to really be motivated to come up with very valuable researches as well. So another thing to do it is with a kind of passion is another thing is yung also how do we do it with in a teamwork setting, because we all know that one of the problems in research is time, but with teamwork I think it now becomes possible. So I really very much agree to what you said na pwedeng partnership between student and the faculty. And another issue is sana even our journalists and practitioners could also engage in research. Isa yun sa mga very interesting issue, how do we encourage our very busy journalists to also engage in research? So without further ado, thank you very much, Sir Jeremiah. We all agree that we need to develop ways to integrate research, not only for us academicians in the curriculum, but the journalists themselves finding meaning in research and applying it to their profession. So we are also very much appreciative of the interactive workshop style lesson that you gave us. I'm glad that despite the usual issues in the online setting, our participants have learned much, and I'm sure they have key takeaways to share. we hope that this would not be the first and last that JSAP could have you. And we hope also that in JSAP, we could already hold in-person workshops. Parang mas gusto ko ito talaga na in-person na magkakasama tayo, no? So we hope we could make that possible soon. And one thing that we also desire is, of course, to stir up the drive to do research for each and every one. And yung mga workshop na binigay mo kanina, I think ma-enjoy natin yan mas lalo na kung in person. So hopefully in the near future, we could really have it face to face. Ayan. So again, overall, I'm sure you would all agree that our time today with our speaker has been very enriching, a very enriching experience for us all. So in behalf of JSAP, thank you very much once again, Sir Jeremaiah Opiniano, for gracing our invitation.
Thank you, Dean Hemadi. Reminder lang po sa mga nag-participate that the feedback form, no, the link is in our group chat, and you can use that to access our feedback form. And those who submitted feedback will be emailed their certificates of participation, certificates of attendance in our webinar. Maraming salamat po. I would like to acknowledge JSAP directors here, Jimmy Domingo, Jamal Abbas. Kanina po si Professor Krista Rara of UP was here, and also our regular associate and student members. Salamat po sa pag-attend sa ating webinar at hanggang sa susunod po na Usap JSAP. No? Sana po magkita-kita po tayo ulit. Magandang hapon po sa lahat.